Welcome back to BridgeFour Competitive. My name is Tom, and today we're taking a look at the set that's releasing this week, Astral Radiance, and we're going to take a deep dive into some of the cards that we think are going to be the most competitively viable for this format. Before we get started with today's video, I would ask that if you do like the video, please hit that thumbs up button and consider subscribing so that you never miss any episodes that we put out. As well, leave a comment down in the comment section and let us know what kind of topics you would like us to cover going forward on this competitive channel. Lastly, Mike from BridgeFour Games does stream on Twitch on BridgeFour Games, usually every Monday, Tuesday, and Friday, finding TCG tournaments to play in. And I know that he's very interested in cracking some Astral Radiance packs and trying out some of these decks right there on stream. So make sure to check us out. Getting into this, what we're going to look at today, again, is Astral Radiance with this amazing set coming out this week. We just want to break down what we think are the most competitively viable cards that are going to be in this set. So we're going to cover the Radiant cards, which is a new card meta, as well as the V-Stars, Dark Support, Starmie V, very specific card I think is going to do very well in this format, as well as staple items, things that you're going to see in a lot of different decks, staple support that you're going to see in a lot of different decks, and the Temple of Sinnoh, which I think is the most disruptive card that's in this set. So we're going to get into it with Radiant cards. A new mechanic to the game are these Radiant Pokemon. Now there are currently 3, Radiant Heatran, Radiant Greninja, and Radiant Hawlucha. And it actually states here that you can only have 1 Radiant Pokemon in your deck. So we've seen mechanics like this before in TCG, but it's very interesting that it is returning and starting with these 3. Looking at Heatran, it is a little bit pricey at 3 energy for that Raging Blast. But it does 70 damage for each damage counter on the Pokemon, and it's a pretty bulky single prize Pokemon at 160. So you can actually find pretty creative ways to add some damage counters onto the Pokemon. Radiant Heatran can be pretty good if you can get it going in a fire deck. Radiant Greninja has the ability Concealed Cards, which means you can discard an energy card from your hand, and once per turn you may draw 2 cards. So you're discarding an energy, you're drawing 2 cards. With stadium support like Training Court, where you can actually get those energy back, this is just a really good draw support type Pokemon that you can add to your team and to your bench. Moonlight Shuriken, if you are playing in a water deck, you can get an attack off, which is discarding 2 energies from this Pokemon, and it does 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So we've seen attacks like this before. We can do quite a bit of damage, especially if you're in a pinch in a water deck. But this is definitely a splashable card because of its ability that we see and it being a basic Pokemon. Last but certainly not least is Radiant Hawlucha with its ability Big Match, and as long as this Pokemon is on your bench, your Pokemon's attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active VMAX card. So once again, a way to very easily start piling up some of that damage that we see if we want to hit some bigger numbers against those large HP VMAX Pokemon. Next up, we have Hisuian Lilligant V-Star, and this deck I think is going to be pretty cool and could really see a lot of play in some tournaments coming up. So Lilligant V-Star does attack for 3 energy, that is 2 grass and 1 colorless, with Parallel Spin. That is 130 damage, plus if you take an energy attached to this Pokemon and put it back into your hand, it's going to do another 100 damage. So that is 230 damage by just cycling back energy. Now also its V-Star ability, and we know that its V-Star power can only be used once during any given game, is Star Perfume, and this is during your turn you may search your deck for up to 5 in any combination, grass Pokemon or grass energy, reveal them and put them into your hand then shuffle your deck. This is extremely powerful to get a lot of things moving and to get a lot of pieces that you're going to need to get this engine up and running. One thing that this deck has going on for it is Hisuian Lilligant V's first attack, which really can be done without any energy attachment at all, and you can draw cards up to you having 6 in your hand. So if you're early game, you get a Lilligant down, you don't even have an energy drop. If you miss an energy drop, unfortunately, you can still play your hand down and then draw a full mitt of 6 at the end of your turn to make sure that you're starting next turn with some more stuff in your hand. As well, you know, the first thing that I looked at when I saw Hisuian Lilligant's first its attack, but then its ability, is how are we going to accelerate the energy that we're going to get into our hand onto our Pokemon? And then I saw Gardenia's Vigor. And this card is actually incredibly strong support for Leaf type decks. It's a supporter. You can draw 2 cards, and if you draw any cards in this way, then you can attach up to 2 energy cards from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon. So you're drawing 2 cards, and then you can drop the energy cards that you have onto one of your benched Pokemon. This is incredibly good for accelerating this energy that you're going to get through the Star Perfume ability, as well as having one of those 3 energy attacks. You can make sure that you can build up really quickly to get this Lilligant V-Star off and running and hitting for a lot of damage. Because once you have that 3 energy there, picking 1 energy back up is probably not going to be a problem. You're going to be hitting for 230 damage on every turn, which is a pretty sizable chunk of damage. As well, Kricketune we have here is another card that's coming out in this set that is really very supportive of grass type Pokemon. So we know that V-Star Pokemon have less HP, usually around 260, 280, but with Swelling Tune, Kricketune on your bench, your grass type Pokemon are going to be able to gain 40 HP. So that's going to put you up to 300 HP. The only thing about this is it doesn't stack. So if you have 2 Kricketune on your bench, it's not plus 80. It is still just that plus 40. But still, it is very good support to just beef up your Lilligant and make sure that you're sticking around that much longer. It's harder for your opponents to fix math with damage drops as well, and different items like Choice Belt, etc. So it's really just a pretty good supportive card, and I'm very interested to see how this deck kind of shapes up and what people kind of do with it, because I think that this deck is definitely playable, especially since we're going to see the emergence of a lot of dark type decks that are weak to this grass typing. So it kind of is really cool for this meta. It definitely has that draw support that you need. It definitely has that energy acceleration that this kind of deck would need. And it's got a little bit of stayability with that extra HP out there. So very interested to see what people do in building this kind of deck. Next up, we have Hisuian Samurott and Darkrai V-Stars, and really this kind of starts where we want to talk about the Dark typing got a ton of support with this particular set, and it really starts with the Hisuian Samurott V-Star. Merciless Blade does 110 damage, and if your opponent already has any damage counters on it, this attack does 110 more damage. There are a lot of ways to get additional damage counters onto your opposing Pokemon. So this is going to be a pretty hard hitting attack for just 2 dark energies. As well, its ability Moon Cleave Star. During your turn, you may put 4 damage counters on one of your Pokemon. So really there's one way right there to get 4 damage counters on a Pokemon, and then you're doing 220 damage on top of that. So that's 260 damage that you're going to be doing in one turn potentially. You can also add things like a choice belt that's going to add additional damage on top of those, and just start multiplying the amount of damage that you're doing. Then we're going to switch over to Darkrai V-Star. Darkrai V-Star is able to get off a Dark Pulse for 2 colorless energies, but this is 30 attack and does 30 more damage for each dark energy attached. So energy acceleration to the dark type here is really going to be the key. That will start stacking, especially during your turn. You may put 2 item cards from your discard pile into your hand, and this is going to be very important because along with these particular Pokemon, we're going to flip over here and we're going to see some of the support that is coming out with for the dark type Pokemon. The first one of the supporter cards for these decks that I previously mentioned is Gatejaw Bog, and whenever a player puts down a basic Pokemon from their hand to their bench, you put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. This is going to be important, especially for that Hisuian Samurott that really needs those damage counters on the opposing Pokemon to duplicate the amount of damage done. So this is a good creative way to be able to get some damage counters down onto your opposing Pokemon, fix some math, and really help out overall. So putting this stadium card down after you fill your bench would be hugely beneficial to that. As well, we also saw in the Radiant cards that Radiant Heatran will do damage based on how many damage counters it has on it as well. So this would be an easy way to get 2 damage counters on it. Heatran is now hitting for 140 without doing anything else. So interesting card, the Stadium card, Gatejaw Bog. Interested to see how it plays out in this format. As well, we have Dark Patch. Dark Patch is a card that was previously in other formats and is now reprinted into Astral Radiance. This is an incredibly powerful card for dark type decks. Obviously, you attach a dark energy from your discard pile onto one of your benched Pokemon. So you can really kind of stack up some of those energies that we saw Darkrai needing more energy to compound the amount of damage that it's doing as well. So very interested to see how these 2 cards play out with the support that it has. As well, these 2 Pokemon are not necessarily supportive just to dark types. They are incredible cards that are out with Astral Radiance as well. Hisuian Sneasler is a stage 1 that, as long as this Pokemon is on your bench, your active Pokemon retreat cost is 2 colorless less. So this is an incredibly cool card, and it's not restricted just to dark. It is any one of your active Pokemon now has a retreat cost of 2 less. As well, we have Mightyena, and Mightyena is really going to limit, I think, we're going to see this a lot, especially to counter Mew. Mew being the VMAX that is weak to dark. If your opponent has any Pokemon VMAX in play, this Pokemon's attack of 160, there is no attack cost for this if your opponent has a VMAX in play. So if you're playing against a Mew VMAX, you are able to do 160 times 2 because of the weakness. You're able to do 320 damage, which is just a clean knockout for no energy drop whatsoever, as long as your opponent has that VMAX in play. Keeping in mind, again, this does do 50 damage to yourself, but it is going to be interesting how many people will tack this in for that Mew match if they are struggling with that Mew match in any way. Before we move on to some of the staple cards that I think we're going to see a lot of in this particular meta, I want to just take a moment to mention one other card that I think is going to be really, really good in this particular format, and that is Starmie V. Didn't really fit in with any of the other V stars or stuff that we talked about, but knowing that we see a lot of Arceus with Inteleon or, those kinds of things, I think that the Starmie V is going to be a really important card that we're all going to need to pay attention to, specifically the Energy Spiral attack. Now, keeping in mind, it does take 2 water energy. This attack does 50 damage for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. And with as much energy acceleration and big attacks that are out there, this could end up putting out just a ton of damage. If your Pokemon or your opponent's Pokemon just have 4 basic energy attached throughout their entire bench and active Pokemon, that's immediately 200 damage, and that's only going to multiply when we see some of those bigger attackers. And so I think this is going to be a really cool card. It's also like the same exact attack as the old Tapu Koko GX. Its Thunder Rumble attack was a GX attack that took 3 energy and did exactly the same thing. So seeing this for just 2 water energy is really cool. I think that Starmie V is going to be something that we're going to see in every single water type deck that's going to be out there, including all of the Arceus versions and Arceus builds of these decks. Taking a look at some of the staple items that I think that we're going to see in this format here, we are going to start with the Switch Cart. I would have this one higher up on my list, but it is switch your active basic Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you do, heal 30 damage from that Pokemon that you move to your bench. So it is really good having like a combo switch heal. The caveat here is it's only good for basic Pokemon. Next up is Energy Lotto. I think we're going to see quite a bit of this card. This is just a classic staple. It is a reprint, was currently in a different set. But now back with Astral Radiance, and really all we need to do here is look at the top 7 cards of our deck. You can reveal an energy card, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck. It's a great way to unclutter the bottom of your deck. If you took a bad Marnie, you can shuffle up your deck as well. Finding those critical energies at critical times. Looking through 7 cards of your deck to try and find that energy is pretty cool. So I think we're going to see quite a bit of Energy Lotto, and I don't think it's going to surprise anyone. Next up is Trekking Shoes. Look at the top card of your deck. You can put that card in your hand, or if you don't want to, you can discard that card and just draw another one. So interesting way to kind of look through a few cards of your deck, especially if you're looking for something specific. You get a few chances at it, or if you're just looking for outs. So very interesting with the Trekking Shoes. Last but not least, I think a tool card that we're going to see all over the place is the Super Effective Glasses. This essentially takes, when applying weakness damage to the attacks of the Pokemon, instead of it doing 2 times the damage, it's going to do 3 times the damage. This is going to secure some really big knockouts, put up some really big numbers, and I think be a very disruptive card. If you are playing against a mirror match and you're not looking at having anything super effective, it can also be discard fodder for things like Ultra Ball, Quick Ball, etc. So Super Effective Glasses, wouldn't be surprised if we did see quite a lot of that card in this particular series with Astral Radiance out. Here are some supporter cards that I think that we're going to see quite a bit of. First off, we're going to start with Arita, and that is really more specific to water type decks. You can search your deck for a water type Pokemon and an item card, put them into your hand, shuffle your deck. It's going to be excellent for the Inteleon line. Obviously, just kind of another way to search them out, another way to get stuff into your hand. With those kinds of decks, really the whole point of them is to just have access to every single card in your deck. This is just another way to do it. And we have Roxanne. Now, Roxanne is just a good hand disruption card. You can really only use this card if your opponent has 3 or fewer prizes remaining. So it's kind of a later game type card, maybe a dead card in your hand for a little while, but it's very strong in the end game. Each player shuffles their hand into their deck. You draw 6, your opponent draws 2. So if your opponent is down to 3 or less prizes, you can really stick them with only 2 cards in their hand. That's going to be pretty disruptive to a lot of decks that are really just missing or looking for another combination of cards to be able to disrupt them in the late game. So I really think that we're going to see quite a bit of that, probably a 1 of, 2 of in the deck. Last but not least, I think that this card is going to be the most disruptive card that we see in this set. The Temple of Sinnoh is all special energy attached to Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's. Provide a colorless energy and have no other effect. That is effectively turning off special energy, and a lot of Pokemon are really reliant on the abilities of the special energy, as well as really having that special energy provide the specific energy that those Pokemon need. So I think this is going to be a very disruptive card in this set, and I'm really interested to see how people use this and how people get around it. I think there's going to be a lot of stadium wars going on to make sure that you can get your attack off when needed. It could potentially make other decks need to put additional stadium cards in, or cards that can remove a stadium type card, but I think this is going to be a very disruptive card to this format, and I'm very interested to see how people react and how people are going to be able to get around this. So that's going to do it for our breakdown of the new Astral Radiance cards that are coming out and what we think are going to be very relevant within the competitive scene. For BridgeFour Competitive, I'm Tom, and we'll see you guys in the next one.